Hi there. Today I'm looking at a wine from Italy. This is Riunite's Lambrusco IGT. And in its day, this has been really quite a significant brand. Cantine Riunite was established in 1950. It's a group of cooperatives. These days it's a combination of 27 cooperative wineries. They have 1,700 growers contributing fruit. They export to 80 countries and they make somewhere in the region of 140 million bottles of wine a year from vineyard holdings of about 4,800 hectares. So in terms of volume, they're significant producers. They first began exporting in the 1960s and they teamed up with a producer mainly of Brunello di Montalcinos and Super Tuscans, Villa Banfi. And Villa Banfi were involved in importing and distributing their wines in the United States. So the first shipment was made in 1969, and by 1976 Riunite were the largest selling imported wine in the United States, and this was something that continued for over 25 years. The partnership with Villa Banfi managed to exploit a taste that had been discovered by the Americans for this light, fresh, fruity, off-dry style of easy drinking red wine. They even managed to weather the fact that in 1985 they were caught up in the ethylene glycol scandal when trace elements of ethylene glycol were found in their wines. They went a long way to dealing with this by, in 1993, adopting ISO 9002 production practice standards, but had initially had to withdraw quite a large amount of wine from sale. 2000s saw a period of combination. In fact, the group that this winery is part of is in fact Riunite CIV. In 2002 they bought a sparkling wine producer, Cantine Riunite, and in 2008 they merged with CIV, another cooperative, Consorzio Interregionale Vini, to form a much larger group. This particular wine is a Lambrusco IGT, which allows the fruit to be sourced from a wider area and also allows higher yields. Part of the upshot of that is that the fruit that is produced is less concentrated. Lambrusco itself can be viewed as a red grape variety, but in fact it's more like a sort of a related group of varieties. Lambrusco referencing the fact that these had been seen to be wild grape varieties. I've seen figures of there being about sort of 12 different varieties included in this group. This particular wine states that it is made 85% from a blend of 3 of these varieties. So there's Lambrusco Marani, Lambrusco Salamino and Lambrusco Maestri in this wine. The 15% balance is made up of another variety called Ancelotte. And Ancelotte is frequently used because it adds a little bit more weight, a bit more depth of colour, and maybe a slight herbaceous note to the wines. And that sort of makes up for some of the dilution that results from the higher yields that have been taken from the IGT vineyards. So this is a wine that's made from vineyards that are both grown on the plains and on the sides throughout Reggio Emilia. The grapes are picked, I would presume, with machine harvesters. Fermentation goes on in stainless steel tanks to produce a base wine. That base wine re-ferments in autoclaves using the Charmat method to increase the alcohol and to put a light sparkle into the wine. To keep the wine fresh, it's probable that most of it doesn't undergo malolactic conversion, so that's leaving the acidity quite crisp and quite fresh. Alcohol is only at about 8%, leaving residual sugar probably to about 50 grams per litre in the wine, which is then bottled young to keep its freshness. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we? It's quite apparent from the colour that this is fairly light. You can see through it really quite easily. There is a slight fizz on the top there. Swelling it, a wine with quite low alcohol is not particularly sticking to the glass. Let's see what the aromas are like, shall we? The aromas are straightforward, but actually they're lifted out of the glass by the fizz there. And what you've got is a sort of a light, soft red fruit nose, sort of initially sort of strawberry and then gaining a little bit more weight and sort of seeming a bit more raspberry. It's attractive, it's simple, it's straightforward. So let's taste. The wine has a medium sweetness, it's light bodied, and the fizz, the pétillant, is not particularly persistent. You feel it's there, but it dissipates quite quickly. There isn't a sort of a continually rising bead in the glass. But that's enough to give good freshness, which along with lovely fresh acidity is sort of really enlivening the sort of the red fruit on the palate. Again, it's quite straightforward, but it's a sort of a, combined with the sweetness, a very strawberry note, touches of raspberry, and maybe even a tiny touch of quite fresh, red, ripe, lifted plum. There's very little weight, there's no structure at all to the wine really. Were this particularly tannic, it wouldn't play well with the fizz, so obviously there's not been significant extraction going on during the production of this wine. As I say, the fruit is fairly simple and straightforward, but the good acidity and some reasonable fruit intensity means that the flavours, they're light, they're lifted, but they're lasting quite well, though without any great weight or complexity. I think this is a good example of this style of wine. It's light, it's fresh, it's attractive, it's aromatic. I suspect the fact that it's actually sweet is going to put off a lot of consumers, and it's not particularly a heavyweight wine to go with foods. It's an easy drinking wine, probably to be consumed on its own or with very light food. I've put a slight chill on this, and that seems to help keep it lovely and fresh and allow that fruit to seem very lively on the palate. So yes, it's a cheap, simple, attractive wine that is actually really quite well made and surprisingly pleasant. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the tasting that we presented. If you have done, please press the like button. Please share the experience with your friends. Hopefully you'll feel like signing up and following us on YouTube. And if you have any comments, it would be great to see them in the comments box below. We'd love to hear what you think about the wines, the tastings we're doing, or anything else related to that. Most importantly, however, I hope you'll take the time to come and join us for another video tasting in the very near future. Goodbye now.